Welcome to Art Speak with Kate. I am Kate Brown. Join us take a journey of creative discovery through central Vancouver Island. We're off visiting artists working in their studios from Merville to Union Bay, many of whom you can visit year-round or by appointment. Why is design important when planning your painting? How does art make the eye flow? Artist Joe Smith tells us how. Delicately painting fawns of ferns. The foggy forest scene from just outside his Union Bay studio comes to life.
And what I want is I want to create the atmosphere of a rainforest. And so it's going to have a lot of moss. So, I mean, this is where the design comes in.
Why is design important when you're planning your painting? How does art make the eye flow? Artist Joe Smith tells us how.
You try to use I use a lot of lines, like branches, you know, sort of all pointing towards the center, because I want people's eyes to go here. And so you'll see when this thing is finished that that'll draw you into the painting, into the distance. Design plays a really important part, whether you're a graphic designer or an artist. And I try to encourage people, if they're just getting into the world of art, to take some kind of a design course. You know, learn how to position things on a canvas in a square or in a rectangle. That's very important, and because it all has to do with eye flow. And of course, when you're in graphic design and when you're in, you know, advertising art, shall we say, eye flow is very important because you want to get people to go from the graphic to the headline back to the graphic. So you want their eyes going all over. And so that's become a large part of my paintings. And I spend a lot of time thinking about the actual drafting, you know, of the painting.
Joe Smith studied fine art in Montreal and changed to graphic design.
I studied at the Montreal Museum of Fine Art, and from there I went to the newspaper business and got a job as a staff artist at the Gazette in Montreal.
As a graphic artist?
As a graphic artist.
You made a change in your life, changing from a graphic artist to a fine artist. What prompted that change?
Money. Money. I mean, you know, even back then, and even in Montreal, which you know, fine art is part of the culture there. You walk down just about any street in old Montreal and you'll see artists. They actually have one street, it's called the Rue des Artistes, and it's just filled with artists from one end to the other. So it's very, very competitive in Montreal, and as an artist, you really needed another job. I mean, art isn't just the only thing that I do other things as well. You know, in order to bring money in. And basically that was the reason.
Joe's experience in commercial art of making screen prints or serigraphs simplifies and focuses Joe's fine art subjects, creating a bold statement with beautiful landscapes and forms.
Oh, I find that my experience in the newspaper business has very much impacted my style of art.
Yes.
And particularly when you look at my contrast, because in the newspaper business, you really need to do your work with a lot of contrast to it so that it could reproduce well in the newspaper and on newsprint. I mean, basically that's one step up from toilet paper. I mean, that's what newsprint was. Now, people in the newspaper business will be really upset at me for saying that, but that's the reality. And so you had to be, you know, have that real high contrast. And you see that in my paintings, there's that contrast.
How does the art community in the Comox Valley compare to the art community in Montreal?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, it's a whole different culture. Yeah. You know, the culture in Montreal and Quebec is very different. And I mean, we used to say, you know, in Montreal, you went out and you bought your paintings first for your first apartment, then you went out and bought your furniture. You know, the rest of the country, it seems that people go out and buy their furniture and then they try to buy paintings and images and sculptures and art to go with the furniture that they bought. So it's very, very different.
In the Comox Valley, I am Kate Brown. Painter of the Estuary. Watch Bev Brown paint grasses, rocks and water. Grasses swaying in the breeze, logs washed up in the storm, rounded pebbles on the beach, lapped with the ebb and flow of tide. These colours and textures are what inspire.
I've always had an interest in art, and in the younger days, probably Group of Seven and the Canadian artists.
Inspired by a father to work on his unfinished paintings, Bev learned early the beauty of nature and the potential to capture the colour and texture with brush and paint.
My father, he's a chef, but he liked to paint. So if he got to a point where he didn't like the painting anymore, he'd let me come and paint on it. And it was oil, so it was always sort of wet. So I'd have this base of what he didn't like, and I'd get to paint on top of it.
Working as a graphic artist and framer, developed her skills in composition and illustration and her attention to detail. Her work is beautifully whimsical. It creates a sense of calm, rhythmical movement in the grasses and the water and the estuary.
When we moved here, we walked around the air park every day and still do. It was sort of well, I started out in watercolors and oils, then watercolors, and then when I started with the acrylics, this was my way of practicing. Every time we'd walk around the air park, I'd see something or take a picture and come back and work just with the acrylics, and it sort of evolved over years.
Bev exhibits her work in many galleries in Western Canada and produces signature works of the estuary for fundraisers for Project Watershed. In the Comox Valley, I am Kate Brown. Opening, inspired and intended to honour the connection between masculine and feminine. Artists of the Wood Vibe tribe in Cumberland support each other as they explore the potential vibes of the art of wood. It all started about 2 years ago when Andy made a wood trellis for beans. People liked it and he made more. It became more elaborate and he started making the flower of life symbol. Having grown up in the forest, son of a tree planter mother and a tree faller father, Andy had an inherent love of wood.
And so I grew up around wood, and my mom was a tree planter, and that's how she met my father. He was a tree faller, and then they had me, and so I grew up around a mill yard and a woodlot my whole youth.
The back shed became his workshop. He invested in a few high-end power tools and explored the potential of wood, cutting, sawing, planing. He sourced exotic wood with different colours and grains and started designing art pieces.
This is a Hegner scroll saw, which is the best scroll saw you can buy in the world. And very quickly I realized that I needed to get a good one. We use a lot of the more rare and expensive woods as a more accent, rather than building an entire piece out of it.
Now Andy is joined by 3 other wood artists to form the Wood Vibe Tribe. Together they put on their 2nd annual Wood Vibe Tribe art exhibition in the Sew Sisters Artists Guild in Cumberland.
So when I made this piece, I was really looking for fiery woods, because the Phoenix is all about fire. And so I really wanted to make the piece look like it was on fire. And we don't use any stains, so that's one thing about all of our work, is we only use the natural colors of the wood.
This one I decided to go a little more abstract, so I just kind of started drawing a design in the computer first, and then that sort of just came about, and I decided I wanted to make it into wood. So it's got a few little images that I see in there, but mostly it's entirely abstract.
Come see Opening, inspired and intended to honour the connection between the masculine and feminine. Wood Vibe Tribe support each other, always with your full presence. In the Comox Valley, I'm Kate Brown. From stained glass windows to twinkling chimes, Janet McFadden, with her Vancouver Island kiln-fired glassworks, is a charming treasure trove in Royston.
This is my day job, full-time for probably 30 years now, yeah.
The twinkling chime of glass welcomes you as you enter the studio down by the Trent River. Running her fingers through scoops of glistening coloured glass, Janet gets inspiration.
I was always an artist. I did all kinds of things, painting, drawing, crazy embroidery in the 70s and all kinds of things. And once I hit glass, I have never changed.
This recycled glass is lovingly screened and separated into different colours and hues to making into amazing glass art pieces.
Well, with stained glass, you're very restricted to a pattern and very precise, and with fusing glass, you can put glass anywhere you want. As long as all your glass is compatible, you can put it anywhere on your design and just melt it in. The kilns are like pizza kilns. All the heat comes from the top, and so it just melts everything into one piece. And it's called scoring, so you can hear that sound. You score the glass, and you break it.
Janet, who lived in New Westminster, was first attracted to glass by the coloured stained glass windows in the heritage homes there. She designed her own glass windows, and it took off from there.
There was stained glass everywhere because it was the first capital of British Columbia and lots of big houses. And I just fell in love with stained glass. And many years later, when I was 26, I took a night school course in Alberta and just loved it and just kept working at it and was selling glass for a long time.
In the Comox Valley, I am Kate Brown. A synchronized swimmer and experienced diver, Lisa Graham loves filming underwater. She started photographing nature, sea lions in the bay, and diving along the rock faces. Now she films people underwater.
I started photography underwater. I was scuba diving and I wanted to show my friends and family the fish.
Diving and photography are Lisa Graham's passions. As a synchronized swimmer and experienced diver, she loves filming underwater.
I always wanted to be able to utilize the camera and how the water plays with hair and things. I was really good at taking pictures of fish, but not so good at people. So I ended up taking the course here at North Island College, and I learned how to take people pictures too. This is my first time with all the bubbles in the water, and they were actually sticking to the dome of my camera.
Lisa loves how fabric flows underwater. She designs costumes especially to create the desired effect.
When I wanted to take women out in the water, in the pools, they didn't have the right clothing. And it's really important that things aren't heavy underwater. So I took a pair of curtains and I made these pants. And actually everything on my rack there has been carefully chosen to be safe in the pool or in the river. I know the layers are just to die for. If I see they're having trouble and just can't unwind, I will actually have them close their eyes, take a breath, and then go to the beach in their head. And it really helps. Like, you see it just drain, and you know, people like, oh, nervous.
In the Comox Valley, I am Kate Brown. Listening to music, colours dance, tonal values, balance and form. These are the ingredients that Lynn Farrell uses to create a large abstract power masterpiece. Open up the studio door. Let's go visit Lynn's studio in Tin Town.
I'm really interested in balance and color, tonal value, and how those hum together, how they work on a painting. I love cast shadows. I don't do it a lot in my paintings, but growing up here on the island and having spent a lot of time in the forest, I do appreciate that. I was in Vancouver and I did makeup artistry for fashion photography and television. And then I switched from that and did a lot of different things, more creative things as far as sales. And moved back into art 5 years ago. Started at Art Alchemy for 2 years and met some really wonderful influences there. I do have visitors, and it's wonderful having people come in just so they can experience being in a gallery and feeling what the art is like and the energy that it has in here versus other places that don't have art. With the sun and the sky and just fields of corn, and that's how this came about. And I think it's one of my, I call it a power piece.
In the Comox Valley, I am Kate Brown. Join us again for Art Speak with Kate. In the Comox Valley, I am Kate Brown. Welcome to Art Speak with Kate. I am Kate Brown. This time we're going to visit many artist studios from Black Creek to Parksville. We'll visit several local artists and artisans working in their own studios. But this is only 10% of the art studios you can visit on your own art exploration. Central Island Artisan Studio Tour, an art sale, is a self-driven studio tour. One stop on the studio tour, where you can meet over 15 artists all in one location, is at the art group Comox Valley Sandpiper Studios on Hass Road between Courtenay and Royston. Let's go. Jennifer Harrison, once a busy career biologist and owner of a local plant nursery, has now found a new passion in life.
I am a gardener. I'm actually a biologist, and for a while in my life we had a garden center, and I ordered, sold, promoted, researched these rhododendrons. And so when my lovely husband took a picture of this rhodo from our garden, all of a sudden I thought, this isn't just a rhododendron. It represents all the rhododendrons I ever sold, and it's a symbol of my background.
Being a biologist, her inspiration in painting comes from the flora and fauna around her.
This squirrel here, I changed it to be a squirrel that runs along my fence. So this is my fence at the back, and this is my forest at the back. And I realized that pretty well everything I paint has to do with nature or my life. And that kind of amazed me. And this one, for example, because I'm a biologist and because I've been with the Comox Valley Nature for 23 years, I love to go in the woods with my husband and go on walks. And this this is of course some mushrooms, and I see these mushrooms and I think, wow, they're all supporting one another. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I must have wanted to paint it, because it's got this other meaning for me, and it's symbolic of the support I feel in this art group.
Jennifer is so excited about art, and she's learning so many new things. A quote from Picasso suits her so well. "I'm always doing what I cannot do in order that I may learn how to do it."
I felt a bit guilty about using a grid to get the picture on the canvas, but then I heard that Leonardo da Vinci did gridding. So I thought, hey, if he can do it, then a beginning artist can do it too.
Understanding plants and animals has given Jennifer a new insight into creating art in the Comox Valley and Kate Brown. Marla Ashley has found ways to combine her love of writing and art by using mixed media to write words within her paintings.
I write. That's something I do, and so I find language and the use of language very artistic. Like it's an artistic expression. So.
Marla once dreamed of being a potter. She loved to make and sell pots. Her family came along. University studies, academia, writing books. Then she became a professor of English Lit. Marla had little time for art. Now, still very busy with 2 grandchildren, she finds ways to combine her love of writing and art in visual writing.
Well, I find that it's a combination of the need to express myself in some ways. I find literature very inspiring. There is a poem by Carolyn Smart called October, and I think that's the first painting I did based on a poem, because I find that the inspiration that comes from literature is sort of the same inspiration that I feel when I look at a really great piece of art. And so we have the poppies and the black crow. I love crows. We can't have the dark without the light, and we can't have the light without the dark. There's a contrast there.
Some painters transform the sun into a yellow spot. Others transform the yellow spot into the sun. Pablo Picasso.
I decided to go back to some really rustic type of work. It's a block of wood, and there are layers and layers of paint on it that I've sanded off so that the background comes through. And then now I'm just embellishing it with, this will be a bird on a wire, and but it will take many, many layers and a lot of detail.
For Marla, her palette can include everything in mixed media, from a stamp, an image, a coffee cup, a stain. The world's her oyster.
So it may look like just a little block of wood, but it'll be a work of art.
In the Comox Valley, I'm Kate Brown. Alias Rembrandt van Rijn. Peter Molin grew up in Amsterdam, studied art and formal training of the Dutch masters like Rembrandt and Vermeer.
I think in the landscape painting, I don't like to paint the foreground very much, so I spent all my time painting the clouds, the sky.
His father bought a set of paints for himself, but he didn't use them. Young Peter picked up a brush and started to paint a scene of the canals around him. The painting won first place in a competition. On receiving his award, the judge remarked, "Your dad painted that for you." Peter was crushed, but now he takes it as quite a compliment.
A very good drawer when I was a kid, and when I was 12 he took me to the art shop in Amsterdam, and he started to paint, and he said to me, "You finish it," and that's when I started to paint. So I was 12 years old.
Life took Peter and his young family to emigrate to Canada and then to the US. Peter worked as a hotel chef in Hawaii and returned to Portland, Oregon, and then to Sawasan, where he opened up a couple of delicatessens businesses. Not until early 2000 when his wife, Marla, presented paintings to galleries that things took off.
Since I met Marla, it was in 1999, I have been painting a lot more than before because Marla went to the galleries with my paintings. And well, yeah, they said, okay, but they wanted to talk to me because I made them, not because and that's how I got into galleries. And then I really started to paint, and especially when I retired, and I started to paint even more, of course.
Peter loves to paint in the Dutch style, with the vast, flat landscapes, the wide open skies and clouds. Peter Molin our clouds. Peter now sells in art galleries throughout Canada, in Calgary, Salt Spring Island and Waterton, and is featured in many national art magazines such as Arabella. Give me a museum and I will fill it. Pablo Picasso. Peter gets up early every day and paints to keep up with demand. So you're the real Dutch master?
Only in this part of the world.
In the Comox Valley, I'm Kate Brown. Colour, light and form are Sharon Lalonde's muse.
Well, light is the way light hits clouds and the water and the leaves and the dimension, trying to create on a two-dimensional surface what we see in the world, especially in our beautiful Comox Valley world, that is that depth of light and movement. I'm not sure if I capture it all the time, but I guess that's my goal.
Sharon Lalonde started her career as an art teacher, but soon became more involved in administration and teaching. On moving from Calgary to the Comox Valley, Sharon found time to take up and play with paint again.
I was 20 when I started teaching, and I'd done my fine arts degree from 17. And I think my older self has a better, more perspective on things, just in many ways. There's many years behind me now, so I'm coming back to painting with a new sort of discipline maybe, and patience, and open to what is there to be taught.
Inspiration comes from many places, whether it's camping or walking through the forest or climbing the steps at Goose Spit.
This is my niece and her friend are just emerging in the bottom. They were traveling in New Zealand, and I think probably were exhausted by their travels, and they've just put up the tent and finally got to sit. And this is the view they were looking at.
Colours, like features, follow the changes of the emotions. Colour, light and form are Sharon's passion.
I think that having this new, seeing it for the first time experience has given me lots of material for painting.
In the Comox Valley, I am Kate Brown.